Sorry. Are you ready, Lynn? We're ready to go. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you all, and my apologies to Lynn. She wasn't here when we was there. So I think roll has been called. Okay. So we'll entertain a motion for approval of the minutes of the April 23rd, 2019 regular meeting and the April 30th budget review meeting. Your pleasure. Okay, motion support. Are there any comments, questions, corrections? Hearing none, those in favor? Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. Oh, sorry, my apologies, thank you. We do have an addition to the agenda, under item G, resolutions, we add number 4. I'm not sure you have a copy of that in front of you. So I guess, a motion would be in order to accept the agenda as amended. All right, motion supported, any comments, questions? Hearing none, those in favor? Opposed, same sign, carried, thank you.
What's the date of that?
The date of what?
May 18th. So was, May 18th.
Good catch. Okay, we'll move down to C, the hearings. First up, we have a public hearing to consider the establishment of an obsolete property rehabilitation district for a parcel at 317 North State for the purpose of creating upper story apartments. So we'll open the hearing. Eric, you're taking the lead, looks like.
Yes, we've done a few of these in the past, and we'll continue to do these. As projects come to us, this is a tool for developers to use to help recoup some of the cost of the investment in some of these older buildings. They're very expensive. These are for apartments in the second stories. So anything that we can do to help offset some of that initial cost, the better. So what I'm going to do is just talk. We have 2 of them tonight. They are the same thing. We're setting the district, and so I'll just go through the crowd that's here and talk about just the basics, and we'll take questions from there. The first one is for 317 North State Street, and that is located right there. That's where the big number 3 is, with 13. That is that building right there. That's where TerraCycle and Academy of Performing Arts is located on the first floor. And then there's the ground level of the building there. The Obsolete Property Rehabilitation Act, it was put into law in 2000. It provides for a tax incentive to encourage redevelopment of obsolete buildings. And the idea, obviously, is to redevelop an older building which may be contaminated, blighted, or functionally obsolete. Functionally obsolete means that in the area, especially up in the second stories, these are basically been vacant for decades. There is no functioning mechanical, electrical, plumbing, so those make them functionally obsolete. So this puts them into that category and allows for these types of buildings to be considered in this act. How it works is essentially the existing taxable value on the designated building is frozen for 12 years. By freezing the taxable value, it provides an incentive for the developer to make significant improvements to the building without increasing property taxes in the building. Taxes are still paid on the current level of taxes, and bonds, school taxes are not exempt. So even after, if these are approved eventually, the school will see a increase in the tax value on that building, on the increase in the investment of the value of the building. The rest of those taxes are exempt from that increase. So when people talk about exemptions of taxes, sometimes they think, wait a minute, they're not paying a fair share. No, they're paying the taxes they're paying now. We're just helping them, because once you put that kind of money into a building, tax rates go skyrocketing. So it's to give them some time to breathe, get some recoupment from the rents and things that happen from the building, and the community gets to save one of their historic buildings. The process, this is the first part of it. Tonight we're setting on the local district for the building. We do ours this way. You can do it by parcel or you can do it by a district. We do it by parcel just because it makes it more transparent. Each time a project comes to us, we hold a public hearing like we're holding tonight to set the district, talk talk about it, and then this board will set the district, and that's the easy part. Once that resolution is passed, the district is established, then the property owner can submit, they don't have to, when they get to the point of actually developing the project, a OPRA application, obsolete property rehabilitation application, for the exemption certificate. Another public hearing is held on the application itself. That's the big one. Obviously, you'll know exactly how many apartments, what they're gonna, the layouts of the apartments gonna look like. They've gone through their special use permit with the planning commission. They know where more parking and all that fun stuff that's going. If that's reviewed the public hearing, the planning or city commission would make a recommendation up to 12 years for the exemption. And that's what we've done in the past, is all of them have been up to 12 years. Once that's approved locally, the application resolution are sent on to the State Tax Commission. The State Tax Commission has the final say. They have 60 days to approve or disapprove the request. So we haven't had that happen. They haven't denied one of our requests at this point. But that is a possibility. They could say, nope, we're not going to approve this one. But that has not been the case. So this board here and within the community, we make a recommendation and then send it on to the state. That's the basics of an OPRA, and tonight we're just setting the district for this particular building, and the next one will be doing the exact same thing. So I won't bore everybody with the exact same explanation, but we'll show you once we close this hearing and do what we need to do with the comments. We'll do the same thing in the next one, but we won't go through the explanation.
Okay. First comment, I want to let everybody know I am an owner of this building, so I do have a personal interest in this project. So that's my comment on this. Anybody else have any comments or questions for Eric?
And just so you know, these projects as they come in, just because, you know, sometimes people say, well, someone's elected official. No, it's anybody that comes in. This isn't the first one we've done. We've approved quite a few of these over the years.
Well, it's the first one I did, and
Exactly.
I know we went to the state
Yeah.
specifically
Yeah.
to find out if there was any problem
Exactly.
with me being involved in the project. And that's it, so.
And they signed off on that. It's a beautiful building, and it needs renovation, and it could add a lot of value with living quarters, and obviously, you know, tax base it will generate and continue to generate. Now I'll leave the floor, and you can take public comment.
Okay. Any members of the public, or I guess, does anybody from the commission have comments or questions? Okay, we'll open up to the public. Does any of the public have comments or questions? Seeing very little. We will entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Support.
Motion support. Any comments or questions on that? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The hearing is closed. Next, we have to adopt a resolution authorizing the establishment of an obsolete property rehabilitation district for the parcel at 317 North State.
So moved.
Support.
Motion support. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. I would like to abstain, please. Motion is carried. Next up is public hearing for the consideration of an establishment of an obsolete property rehabilitation district for parcels at 116, 118, and 120 East Superior for the purpose of creating upper story apartments, once again.
Yep. Like I said, I won't go through the explanations. It's the exact same thing. Oops, going too far. 116, 18, and 20. It is the location for the Gallagher Everett Law Office, Highland Blush, and what used to be Cardboard Addiction are the locations that we're talking about in this. It's a touchy. Down in the pictures here. This is all online, so you can read all about it. All right, there's a 116 through 120 East Superior Street. Some really cool historic buildings, lots of space. Like with the previous project, it would be a very expensive project when it's all said and done. This is the easy part, just setting the district. The developers have a lot of work to do, and there'll be a lot of investment. Obviously, they're working with the state, hopefully, to get some MEDC monies to help those apartments, but it's still a huge, huge private investment to make this happen. There are the storefront and the storefront, and then the storefronts that are there currently. The final tally on the apartments here, we haven't narrowed that all down, but I know Nancy and Zach are working on multiples, and it's gonna be a very, very cool project when it's all said and done. Obviously, the same thing we said before, we're setting the district tonight, and then we'll at some point be back here with an application for the Oprah. One thing I did mention before, as they apply to the state for this funding, one of the things they do look at during that application process in the pro forma is that the community provides some kind of help and incentive that they want this project to help to succeed. And our way of providing assistance, specifically financially, is to use the Oprah. And doing that, giving them that exemption, we also get our taxes that we're currently getting, but we do give them some incentive to do that. The state looks at that as a positive thing. The community does want this to happen. They're willing to forego the increase in value for a period of time to get the project done. So, any questions on this one?
Any questions? Okay, hearing none. Are there any questions from the public? So, again, seeing very few comments from the public.
Just a quick comment. Yeah, I've been in Tim Langruck, 1026 Pine Tree Court, County Commissioner for 2 Thursdays. Yeah, I've been in 4 meetings in the last 2 months. In fact, one of them Matt was in, where the issue of housing shortage has come up. And this is probably the best no cost to the taxpayer tool that we have, because as many of us know, it just is not viable for developers to come in with the rent rates in anywhere in Gratiot County and build the type of housing developments that we see up in Isabella County. And this is just a win-win-win for everybody. So I just think it's smart for us to aggressively pursue these and court these property owners who are willing to do this, because it's great for the downtown. We need housing, and it doesn't cost us anything.
Yeah. And I know there was an article in the recent Planning Commission book. I don't know how many people read that. Is it just Planning Commission? The
Yes.
state publishes that book, and they showed the heat map, which we've probably seen for years, but per square foot, the downtown areas create more tax revenue per square foot than any other section of your town. So, even this additional investment just enhances that. Okay, with that, yes, any comment? Oh, sorry.
No.
I'm gonna cut you off. With that, we'll entertain a motion to close the hearing. Motion support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. We will now adopt a resolution authorizing the establishment of an obsolete property rehabilitation district for parcels at 116, 118, and 120 East Superior.
Support.
And motion support. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. Thank you. Number 3, public hearing to review the proposed fiscal year 2020 annual city budget and related property tax millage rates. Note here says proposed 2020 annual city budget was presented to the Commission on April 9th, 2019. Pursuant to section 6.3 of the Alma City Charter, the City Commission is required to hold a public hearing to provide interested individuals an opportunity to provide input in the review process, and the proposed 2020 budget was developed with the assumption of the following property tax millage rates being levied in the upcoming year. General fund millage of 14.4060, a transportation millage of 0.9604, a voted street millage of 2.5, a voted library millage of 1.5, a library millage of 0.5, and a DDA millage within the district of 1.9716. So, your pleasure. I guess we'll open the hearing, right?
Move to
So we'll do
open.
that. Do we need to vote for that?
No,
Okay.
okay.
All right.
Cover all our
So our
bases.
hearing's open. Are we taking a lead? Is anybody going to petition here? Or?
What is this a change from previous years?
Okay.
So it's not a change.
No change. We'll just and is there room to change? Are we under our limits, or is this at our limits?
Very little room to change it. We are at it.
Okay. So we're maxed up. Okay. Anything else for public hearing, or? Okay, well,
I have a question. Are we having that hearing now, or are we setting a public hearing for Tuesday, June 11th?
No, that's a
This is
different
separate-
one. That's the
separate.
next
That's the
one.
next
Okay,
one.
all right,
That's the next one.
okay,
That's a special assessment.
okay, all right, thank you.
So this is the public hearing.
Okay.
This is the
So-
public hearing.
Relative to what you just told.
Right.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So, is there anybody from the public that has comments or questions about our budget process or our budget for 2020? Golden opportunity, folks. Okay, hearing a little interest, once again. We'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved. Support, whatever.
Motion to support. Any additional comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed, same sign. And that motion is carried. Moving down to number 4, set a public hearing for Tuesday, June 11th, 2019, at 6 p.m. to consider a special assessment roll for unpaid charges for noxious weed cutting, sidewalk replacement, and utility billing charges for 2018. We have a motion. Support. Okay, any comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. Moving to the request for purchase. First up, we have a request for purchase the amount of $28,645 to Crapple Ford and Lincoln for a 2019 F-250 crew pickup cab with plow for the Elma Transit Center.
Move approval.
Have a motion and support. Any comments or questions?
Was this a budget item?
This is an item, Larry, that we're gonna go ahead and use some of the excess fund that's in there that needs to start coming down for this. This is replacing a,
2004.
2004, vehicle with only about 60.
It's just rolled 60,000 miles, and I'm told if it's not replaced, then we're gonna put a lot more money into this vehicle than what it's worth, so. It's time.
Okay. So I guess,
From the, yeah, it's through the My Deal contract.
so it's a state
Yeah, state
contract.
contract through My Deal.
Through Crapple.
Crapple, yeah,
Yeah.
who actually, yeah.
So I guess that leaves the question, you've got a 2004 with relatively low miles on it. Is this the best way to operate and to supply a plow truck to that entity? Rather than pulling one out of motor pool that's additional use and basically rent it to them or rent the service to them? Would it be more efficient to, I mean, it sounds like this truck maybe spends a lot of time sitting alone.
Oh, no.
Oh,
No,
no.
this truck's also used, it would be for, it basically becomes the director's truck also that's used for transportation to get around. It's one of the, that's how it's been used in the plow comes out in the winter, but it's used
Because
every
the addition of that truck to the fleet, the first one was probably 2004 then, right? Maybe I'm
I have no
I
idea
maybe
what
don't
they were,
remember
I have no
something.
idea what they were using before. I know that it's always been a part of transit to have their own plow, they do all their own plowing. Then, I don't know when they did it first.
So would this truck stay at the transit center?
That cost there is with that truck being traded in.
Right. But
Towards
I'm
the
saying this
purchase of
current,
it.
if we
It's
bought
fu-
this
it's
one,
fully
is it
dedicated.
just,
It's a transit truck.
so it's gonna stay, I mean, like you're not taking it and driving it at
No,
home or anything?
no, I don't have a, no.
I mean,
But I guess your
just
question is that it's
Sure.
2004 and it is used, why is the mileage so low? Is that part of what the question you're asking?
Yes.
Because if it's used,
Well, no, it
That's
was
up to you.
purchased new, but we've had it since
right, that's what I'm
2004.
saying, since 2004.
14
only
years, it's 60,000 miles. My question is, are we using it as efficiently as
what I'm
possible?
asking.
Could
Yeah,
would it be more efficient to use one of the plow with one of the trucks
Because it
on the
makes it
tool?
sound like Matt's response was that we are using it quite a bit, but
I mean,
it's
it's
just
used
in
every day.
town.
I
Every
think
day.
that.
But it's just because it's in
You wanna
town.
talk about is it efficient? It's lasted 14 years.
Oh, yes.
Doing all the plowing every day.
The question is, you put an
and-
average of 4,000 miles a year,
Yeah.
which seems very low.
Yeah.
Is there an alternative to that, is what I think you're saying.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I would interject is, like, we have public works vehicles that we send to the auction. They might have 80,000, which seems low, but you can drive around town a lot and not add many miles on.
Yeah, just-
And they do
Yeah.
age because it's
Yeah.
city driving.
Right.
It's Like the vehicle that we drive to the for engineering, you can drive a lot, but you don't put many miles on it, just
Yeah.
because we don't go great distances with.
But the other point is, it's an F-250, which is a fairly heavy-duty truck. If-
Because we use it for plowing.
But, yeah, if we were using, if you just needed the portion of it that you do to drive around for whatever it is your tasks are.
Right.
Perhaps a lighter weight vehicle, it would be even more efficient with that task as well. So I just ask staff to consider that.
I don't know anything about trucks, so your answer is what. That's all I was, what it is you're just driving in town, so the miles aren't necessarily gonna be like you're driving to Florida every other week, but you are utilizing it.
Every day.
Okay. I don't, the other things, I'm knowledgeable about, so.
What's the difference in cost in a 250 and a 150?
I didn't bid these, but I'm gonna guess, you can
A couple
interject.
$1,000.
I'm guessing probably somewhere between $2,000 and $5,000. I'm guessing based on what I've recalled through the My Deal program.
And there's operating efficiencies as well.
Yeah, that's, but yeah, I don't wanna interject on what's
Yeah.
needed for that, but.
And I don't pretend to know what's the most efficient use, I just wanna make sure you've considered the options of doing things a different way. Just because we've always done it that way, doesn't make it the best way to go forward, so. Okay. So,
So are we asking them to look more into it, or do you, or?
well, we're looking to set a hearing right now.
No, it's a
No, I'm
request for
sorry,
purchase.
request for purchase,
Right,
right.
right, so that, and I made the motion, but I wanted to know if you are wanting more information before we make the motion.
I
And
guess-
I'm understanding from them.
If you guys are satisfied with their answer, so am I.
I'm fine. I stand by my motion.
Okay. So we had a motion support, I asked my question. So, if there's any other questions or comments? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. Next up is request for purchase in the amount of $32,000 to Robinson Electric for meters at lift stations 3, 5, and 8, and bypass installations at lift stations 3 and 5 for the wastewater department. It's a pleasure. Motion support. Any highlights for this, or is this just?
What we're looking to do is, if you remember, the last year or so, we talked about we're looking at efficiencies and trying to gather information up through all the departments, but at wastewater, trying to find out where our high flow districts are. We kind of know where they are, but we can track rate events, thaw events, trying to find out which lift stations and how much water they're getting. We're starting to look at patterns. These meters will help for us to illustrate those pictures. Number two is the bypass piping. We were gonna do these, we were looking at doing these separate, but it didn't really make any sense when they're both related to the same lift station. We combined these together to do the work all at the same time rather than doing one section a few months from now. But the bypass piping is in the event of a pump failure. What we can do is put our pumps down into these bypass pipes and run it in lieu of an issue with the pumps. In the event of a pump failure or anything like that, this gives us a redundancy to get sewer out of these districts rather than hopefully flooding the basements.
I believe they talked to us when we did that, when we did our tours, they talked to us about this and explained it.
So this is a part of that program. There's going to be more things coming down the line, but this is the first step, and this is budgeted for fiscal year 19.
Okay. Any comments or questions additionally? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion is carried. Moving on to F, recommendation and bids. First up, we have receipt of bids for lawn mowing services. We received 2 bids for the April 23rd, 2019 noxious weed enforcement mowing for the 2019 season of 18,500 square yards of finished mowing and 1 acre of rough mowing. The low bid is J&R Lawn Care at $595, and that is the recommended bidder. Oh, then we're gonna do them together, so yes, sorry. Gemstone Field subdivision property mowing for 2019 season of 72,745 square yards for finished mowing and 18.7 acres of rough mowing. The lowest bid here is Premier Property Maintenance at $2,760.10, and again, they are the recommended bidder. So your pleasure.
Move approval of the 2 recommended bidders.
Support. Motion support. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion is carried. G1, consideration of a resolution approving the discharge of mortgage for the property at 318 Park Street. Your pleasure. Motion support. Okay, any comments, questions, or staff get any color?
They're selling property, they owed us money still, we got the check, and we're just charging them the loan.
Pretty straightforward.
They've had the loan out, it was part of the loan to it, and you basically don't have to pay it back until you sell the home, so it's been out there since 92, I believe it was, 91, 92.
And do the funds go into a revolving fund for this?
It goes
or-
back in the housing fund, but,
It doesn't specifically have to go to this program?
I have to talk to Cindy about that, I don't know for sure, but it goes back in the housing resource fund. Yeah, but it's now city-owned funds.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor? Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. Number 2 is consideration of a resolution naming David Ringel, who is the Public Services Director, as the single street administrator for the city of Alma in all transactions with the State Transportation Department. Motion support, any comments or questions? It's a high title, I assume it comes with no additional
I
pay.
was gonna say, does this give him all the rights and privileges of a street director?
Is there anyone else that wants it?
I believe it does come with no additional pay.
So that's the word of catch. Anyway, yeah, if there was a motion for anyone else.
I think we had a motion.
Oh, yeah.
We had motion support, so any additional comments or questions or harassing anything? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion is carried, congratulations, David. Teach you to come to the meeting. Next up, we would like to consider a resolution granting permission to the Arts Walk Project to use downtown sidewalks on East Superior from State East to Gratiot, and to close Woodworth Avenue from East Superior to Center Street for their events on June 9th and June 21st, 2019. July 21st, sorry. June 9th and July 21st, yes. And motion support, any comments or questions or color coming? Just anything you gotta add?
The activities take place from 11 a.m. that morning till 3 p.m. that afternoon.
So it's two separate
Sundays
events?
again?
Yeah, it'd be Sundays, those are Sundays, yeah.
They're not going through, it's not June
That-
9th through the 21st?
No,
It's
no,
one
no,
and
just-
one. Okay,
That'd be a long time to close
Okay.
it down.
Yeah.
well, I wasn't sure.
I'm not opposed to it, but I'm opposed to the hours because during church services.
We can talk about it, yeah. It's first year trying it, so.
1, 2, 3,
That's right during church services.
Right, no, right.
What's the concern, Larry? Because of the parking or just?
Just people attending church. I think we shouldn't do anything we can to keep them out of church. My opinion.
Yeah, people go at different times.
Yeah.
In order to end that discussion,
I've been outvoted before. I don't care. That's my opinion.
it's not, I don't think it's in any ways against church.
Well, don't schedule things against church.
Okay, so I believe we had a motion and support, so any more comments? Last chance, last word, Larry?
No, I just vote no.
Fair enough. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, or opposed? Okay, we have one opposed. Motion is carried, however.
But because of the hours, not because of the project.
Yes. So considered. The additional item we added to our resolution, number 4, is consideration of a resolution approving a request from Gym 24/7 LLC to allow a musical band to perform in the parking lot of 217 North State Street from the hours of 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. for their grand opening celebration. On May 18th, yes. That is handwritten on my thing here, I should read that. So your pleasure.
Support?
Okay, we have a motion of support. Is there any comments or questions?
That's in the old MESC building. Right in our plaza. It shouldn't be in anybody's way.
Should we do it again? Okay,
They're also doing a ribbon cutting in the chamber.
so there'll be publicity out about all this. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. Moving down to agreements. consideration of a resolution authorizing the execution of the project authorization 2017-0004 P9 for the Michigan Department of Transportation to provide federal and state funding for the purchase of one 30-foot replacement bus with a lift in the amount of $76,699, and to authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the agreement on behalf of the city. Your pleasure. All right, that's right. Move it along. And motion support, or any comments or questions?
What is this?
All right, no, that's it.
I know, but I mean, project authorization. They're providing,
This is the funding.
They
that
provide the
for
money and we get the
replacing
bus.
one of the buses.
100% funded.
okay,
100%, I like that.
okay, that's good.
Although it's still our money, it's coming to us,
Yeah, right,
it's our money coming back to us, so.
right, okay.
All right, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, that motion is carried. Moving right along, consideration of a resolution authorizing the execution of a section 5311 operating contract project authorization with the Michigan Department of Transportation, number 2017-0004/P10, to provide federal operating funding to the transit system in the amount of $130,849, and to authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the agreement on behalf of the city of Elma. Your pleasure.
So moved.
Good motion support, or any comments or questions? Again, dial rate funding. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and that motion is carried. Number 3 is consideration of a resolution authorizing the execution of a ground lease agreement between the city of Elma and Elma College for parking lots number 4 and 8 in the north-south alley in downtown Elma. And if the note, I guess we'll just read it, the lease agreement is for the Elma College use of the parking lots and alley for the staging of construction activities in the Opera Block Complex, and for the parking of vehicles by resident, tenants, and visitors to the Opera Block Complex. The term of the lease is for 10 years with a possible extension of 2 additional 5-year terms. Per the lease agreement, Elma College will construct and pay for improvements to the parking lots on the property not to exceed $500,000. So this is all part of what we talked about from over the years of the whole Opera House project and the state funding of their participation, so.
Move approval.
Okay. Support. Motion support, any additional comments or questions?
I'm not trying to say Opera Block Complex 10 times.
I would like to decline to do that. I've struggled to say it a couple times already, so, but thank you for the challenge. Okay, I believe we had a motion support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion is carried. With the note that I'm sure we all do appreciate Elma College's investment in the city and the downtown. It's going to be a wonderful thing, so. Consideration of a resolution authorizing an agreement with the city of St. Louis for property assessment administration to be administered by the city of Elma assessor, which will list, appraise, and maintain a complete set of records for all real and personal property, subject to ad valorem taxation, specific taxes, and in lieu of tax agreements within the corporate limits of the city of St. Louis. The agreements provided by the city of St. Louis the agreement was approved by the city of St. Louis at their May 7, 2019 meeting.
Move approval.
Support.
Have a motion support. Okay, comments, questions, or staff, you wanna
This
give a little
is-
color on this for the public?
If you go back to the goal setting session in January, and one of the areas that we've talked about, and I think that what you're seeing us continue to try to do is work with our partners in the area, see what are those services, what are those things that can be provided, that we can do together, that we can start to work together in order to, and it's not really, I hate to say, it's not a cost-cutting thing, it's providing a better service to our people at a reasonable cost, and we want to make sure that's out there. And the idea would be that we will get to the point of a $65,000 payment per year from St. Louis in order to allow Kathy Rosenman to take over their role and to be able to see fit as we look at some staffing issues and her increased time in doing that. But it's a very efficient way for us to do things. It's again delivering some of that consistency that we continue to talk about in the county, and I think it's a very good sign that we continue these types of talks with each other.
And it's a more collaborative effort, not a obliteration of one
Yes,
No.
no, it's
entity over
definitely.
the other.
Correct.
No, it's
a
definitely a
collaboration.
win-win
It's a win-win
situation
for
for
both
everybody.
parties.
Yes.
It's the ability to take advantage of, yeah, we said it before, but the extraordinary ability and achievements that Kathy, she's outstanding in her field. She was recognized statewide, so the ability to capitalize on that for both our communities, to provide, as Matt said, a better service to both communities at the end of the day. So we're all gonna get a better product for this. Okay. Any additional comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. Reports, we have 1 through 5. Commissioners may receive the following reports by one resolution, or a commissioner may remove any single item within the section for individual discussion and vote. We have reports from the Alma Transit for April 2019, the building permit report for April 2019, code enforcement report for April 2019, the Alma DDA meeting minutes of April 10, 2019, and planning commission meeting minutes of April 1st and May 6th, both 2019. So your pleasure. Anybody like to receive the reports?
I would love to receive.
All right. Anybody care to support this?
I will.
All right, we have a motion to support. Anybody care to pull any items out of there? No questions, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We have received reports. New business, consideration of sign ordinance discussion. We're gonna consider discussion. So, I'm not sure what how we do that.
I think we should discuss it.
I don't think we need a motion for that, so who's gonna lead?
I think I'll go ahead and start just to explain. I went over some of this in the newsletter portion earlier, but I think to get it in as a part of the meeting. That we have received, the city had received a complaint, citizen initiated complaint about some yard signs in yards in some of our neighborhoods. The complaint was specific to talking about some of the areas that they may, at first, I think initially be are those political signs, right? If you go ahead and read the ordinance, they really don't fit under the political sign of which you're looking more at election signs and those base signs that say the election or a topic within the election that has X amount of time to be taken down. At that point then, really the complaint looks to say that these are message type signs. That's probably the best way of saying it. They're message type signs that have that was brought then to the attention that says, and we've actually discussed this since last October, November, that there is no exception for those signs within our ordinance, which is true. If you go back and read through the ordinance, they don't exist. The reality at that point is none of those signs that are in almost everybody's yard, of which they like, have an exemption in our ordinance. It's an ordinance written in the 60s. I received an email that everybody who had something to do with that ordinance should be fired. I think they're probably beyond fired. It's a different world today. And at that time, the ordinance was enforced. There were no citations written. Actually, Aaron made contacts, personally, with as many people as he could through this process. I have received calls that his professionalism, that was very much appreciated. This is one of those strange areas that we end up in, because it forces us into a meeting like this, where we have a chance to discuss this. I will reiterate where I started at the beginning. The world, as it exists today, doesn't give us an opportunity to say, hey, let's all meet Tuesday and talk about this. There was nobody in the city, and there was nobody's intention that said, over coffee that morning on break before we started work, that said, let's go out and take everybody's signs away from them. You're not going to find a bigger supporter of the city of Elmore, the Elmore Public Schools, than the people sitting here. I will tell you that. So we have to get something defined. And I think where we come then is to say, this is the process sometimes that we have to go through. I'm not going to tell you it hasn't been painful. It's been painful. We have an opportunity to educate people. This is how it works sometimes. You have to come here and have that discussion, have an open discussion to say, I've been asking you guys since I started this, where do we ever have discussion about things? This is one of those opportunities to look at and to say. Some of the things I've read are absolutely unbelievable of what our intention was. The intention was we had an ordinance that we had to go and take a look at. I know I'm gonna hear things about, well, you have other ordinance, why don't you look at that one? We work here on a daily basis of a number of volume things that come through. We have to make certain decisions of what's enforceable today, what can we do. I will tell you, the people who do that are the most conscientious people who care about this community. So, I'm gonna get off my soapbox for a minute.
Let me take over for just a second. I was asked to take a look, and there's a couple things I think people have to understand too. I'm the only one here that's getting paid, you know, money to be, I mean, good money to be here. But that's important for a couple of reasons. You know, I take my direction from the city commission, from the city manager, and they, and other people within the city that when an issue comes up and they're made aware of it, they may ask me to look into it. I don't go looking for this, because at the rate we charge, you can't do that. That's just not, it's not feasible. You just don't do it that way. So I was asked to take a look at the ordinance, the sign ordinance, with an eye toward, you know, what about these signs? What about these political signs, quote unquote, whether it's Black Lives Matter or Blue Lives Matter, or what about, you know, the other signs like Panther Pride, or you know what a band, yeah, Elm High School band, whatever. So I looked through the ordinance, and I dictated an opinion Friday. I gave it to Matt yesterday, and I just go through it just briefly. And this is my opinion, and I am the city attorney, so I, you know, carry some weight. My opinion is, when you look at the ordinance, we all, as lay people, you know, what's a sign? A sign is a, whatever it is, man, it's this with writing on it. That's not what the sign ordinance defines a sign as. And so I looked at, what is the definition of the sign? Initially, definition of a sign is a device which is affixed to or otherwise located or set upon a building, structure, or parcel of land which directs attention to an activity or business. So if you've got a sign that says Black Lives Matter or Blue Lives Matter, or you've got a sign that says Panther Pride or Elma High School band, my opinion is that sign is outside of the purview of the Elma sign ordinance. I don't know back in the 60s when they wrote it, but I can tell you the city attorneys back then were heavyweights, a lot better than I am, and they may have been thinking about First Amendment rights. I have concerns about them too. But that's my opinion, and I think it's supported when you look beyond that. You can go through that and you can talk about different sign definitions. Abandoned signs are one which no longer advertises a bona fide business or product sold. So again, you're talking about a business or product sold. Subsection 5 defines a billboard, a surface whereon advertising matter is set in view conspicuously. We're not, again, it's advertising matter. Section 6 defines a bulletin board, sign related to a public school, parochial school, private school, club or organization, public park or recreation facility, church or other religious institutions, which identifies activities or events to take place, which involve the patrons of each specific use. So, if you've got a sign that dictates, hey, come to this bake sale or whatever that might be, you're talking about it at a specific time in a specific place. So, the Yellow Panther sign, those other political signs we're talking about, they would not come under that definition, in my opinion. And then, of course, there is subsection 20, which again defines the term sign, includes any announcement, declaration, demonstration, display, illustration, insignia, used to advertise or promote the interest of any person. Now, I did not take that to mean I'm interested in the Elma Panthers, so that would apply. I take interest mean a business interest or some other interest that's separate from that. I do not believe, and it's never, in my opinion, and I've been here since 1990, and I've been going to these meetings since almost then, it's never been the city of Elma's intent to enforce that sign ordinance, to my knowledge, on the type of signs we're talking about. Now, there is a section defining political signs, and that's at 6237. And it's defined as a temporary political campaign sign announcing candidates seeking public political office or other election issues pertinent thereto. those signs can be displayed for 60 days before an election and 7 days after. And I think the obvious intent is, once your election's over, win or lose, you know, you take the sign down. Now, I'm not gonna talk about, because you know, there are First Amendment concerns to leaving those signs up. I will grant you that. I was not asked to take a look because frankly, my inquiry ended, at least my opinion, when I determined that these political signs and these Alma Panther signs fall outside the definition. But I do think that, you know, if somebody wants to leave up, I don't care if you're a grateful winner or a sore loser, you wanna leave those signs up, maybe you got First Amendment issues and we can take a look at those. But I do think it's important to just to touch on what Matt said, because it was a citizen's complaint that generated this. And so our people looked at it and they did talk. And then I was asked to do what I did, and that's my opinion. So at least as far as I'm concerned, if you keep your Alma Panther signs up, keep your, you know, these other signs we're talking about up. They're not part of this ordinance. Now, this ordinance was drafted in the 60s, and I think there have been amendments. I don't think I've ever been involved in any of them, but there have been some. And so I do think it's time, and it's a good idea to take a look at some of these things. But I think one thing that's important for everybody to understand, because we're gonna have discussion, I think, tonight about a couple of other issues too, about blight and about enforcement and things like that. You know, from my perspective as the city attorney, I don't go looking for this stuff. I can't, because if I do, and I'm charging my hourly rate, saying, hey, I think I'll take a look at this today, maybe I'll take a look at that tomorrow, you guys would be paying me a fortune. That's not how this works. When things come up, we do the best we can, and then people ask me my opinion, and I give it to them, whether I'm right or I'm wrong. Now, me, I always think I'm right no matter what, but I have been wrong, and you know what I mean? We're human beings. But that's how this plays out. And so these discussions are good, and they're very helpful. And I think you as commissioners got to decide, you know, how we want to move forward, because I do think it's time to take a look at this. There are some Supreme Court cases that talk about what you can regulate and what you can't, that are fairly recent, probably in the last 2-3 years. But anyway, that's my opinion on the sign ordinance. So as far as I'm concerned, rest easy as far as that stuff is concerned. And I think, but from a commission standpoint, I do think it's appropriate to talk about what we want to do going forward and get an ordinance that everybody can understand, and it actually accurately reflects not only the state of the law, but, you know, our opinion as to what we want to regulate and what we don't.
Thank you, Tony, and I know, I mean, I didn't do as extensive research you did. I'm not a lawyer and don't play one on TV, but I did, you know, do some research on some articles. Just you go out and do a Google search and you'll find communities across the nation are struggling with these very issues. I mean, we're not alone in this. Nobody that I saw has any kind of perfect ordinance. Everybody's worried about First Amendment rights. We're all very concerned about property rights and rights of free speech and all that. And I think that's one of the reasons when this popped up, and I forget just all the details of what happened in November, but that's why we kind of shoved it aside then, thinking that it's a deep subject and you really don't want to, you know, you start talking these different rights and responsibilities and trying to balance these concerns and issues gets to be a challenge. And it can be very complicated. I have no problem looking into it further. I am very grateful for your opinion that you wrote for us.
Well,
I think it does highlight that these should fall outside of our ordinance and should be allowed. You know, I think we probably as a city, maybe we misinterpreted the ordinance. It's easy enough to do. We all make mistakes, it's human. I think Aaron did a great job of doing what we asked him to do, which is to go out and enforce our ordinances as fairly and uniformly as he possibly can. And I think, you know, even the people that were, I think they weren't cited, but they were involved in the situation, have complimented your behavior. So thank you, Aaron, for that. I think you did a nice job of representing us. So I do appreciate your professionalism in this. And I agree that nobody in the city, nobody here wants to eliminate the Alma Panther signs or anything else that's, you know, reasonably presented and tasteful, or somewhat tasteful at least.
I actually gonna jump in.
Sure.
What, we're talking about the signs, free speech and all that. Where the issues have arisen, from the time we started talking about November, we're talking about it now, is when we use that policy to arbitrate a disagreement between two people. We are probably better served with the minimalist kind of sign policy, if there's any one, and some mechanism for people to resolve that difference. I mean, we're trying to solve somebody being offended by a sign and not liking something by a blanket response. Sometimes when you do that, you end up going counter to what your intent was. For more speech, we shut everybody down. What we really, and I think we need a policy, but let's not lose sight of, the issue came up because we were trying to arbitrate disagreements between people. Figuring out, I don't know if that's our role to do, but figuring that out may be a piece of what we need to do. An ordinance is to simply say, probably at its barest, what we will be able to do with the city is time, place, and manner. We're not gonna ever talk about content. Once we get what someone's message is out there, and I don't like it, and I do, and I like that, then the arbitration of that is a different mechanism. That's not something probably policy can handle. There may be procedural things, or maybe we don't want to get into it all, but let's not lose sight. I think that's a critical piece to what's going on.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. I think that's a good point, because there's all kinds of little things that could come up. If I put 40 signs in my yard, that could be offensive to Chris Moody, who lives across the street from me, and not offensive to the people who, if he were to say to his next door neighbor, Alden's got 40 signs out in front of his yard, and I hate it, and the other people say, it doesn't bother me, and it's a matter of that. And the obvious thing would be for him to do is come over to my house and say, why you got so many signs in your yard? Why don't you take some down? I don't want to look at them every morning. Well, okay, So that's the way
I'm not proposing that's even our role, but
Right.
But the trigger for this has been that. And in fact, what's telling is, we've not spent a lot of time enforcing this policy until there is some kind of. And I think, I'm not gonna have all stand on the hill and sing kumbaya. I just think we probably need to figure out that that's an element that we're gonna have to deal with regardless of what.
And if you look at the ordinance, when you look at it, I think the overriding intent of the people that drafted it was probably, regulate advertising signs, how big you want them to be and what they could say, and, to a certain extent, they don't want anything, crazy, obscene, whatever, that type of thing. And then also, when they've outlived their usefulness, please get rid of them. I think that was the intent initially. So that's why, you see the campaign signs, hey, when it's over, take them down. And I don't know even if they were thinking specifically about signs in somebody's yard. You know how it goes when the election cycle comes in. People are putting those signs up everywhere, all over the city. And so when it's over, please take your signs down. I think the initial thought process behind this was honorable, I think, and people do the best they can. There's always unintended consequences in every situation like this. And then you end up trying to figure it out. And like you said, it's generated by citizens' complaints and things like that, and so you try to do what you can do. But I do think it's a good time, to probably look at it and maybe rewrite it, and maybe a minimalist approach. That makes sense to me too. I feel like
Is it in there about the size of the sign?
yeah, there's all kinds of stuff in there. Once you're assigned
That's the time, place, and manner.
that is implicated by this ordinance, yeah, there's all kinds of,
Or placed on a corner so it blocks traffic?
there's all
Yeah,
kinds of
that's
Things like that.
There's all kinds of things that can be addressed.
absolutely.
And
If I have a grandson, Johnny, and it's number 25, I'd like it in my yard.
Sure. I don't blame you.
Not in 25-foot high. No.
I don't know.
24 is okay then, just to clarify, right? Okay, so I guess what I'm kind of hearing is we want staff to take a look at this, and maybe a work group put together if needed be.
And maybe look at ordinances other places to see what,
Oh,
other
absolutely.
people have done. I'm sure
Yeah.
people have been reacting to these things and
They're very difficult to,
Yeah.
it is amazing. You would think in today's world you can always find something. I will tell you, it appears to me, there's a lot of other people who have these things going on who are just like,
Right.
maybe we won't have
Right.
to deal with this.
Because you start dealing with the things that, should we allow something to happen on Sunday morning? It's the same type of an issue here. Where it is my right to have an event or to have a sign end and your offense begins, so, tough challenge.
I would like to add though, that if anyone in Elma has an issue that they feel could be resolved by talking to the commissioners, our emails are all public. I welcome to hear from you and to hear about the issue rather than hearing it on Facebook. The last week has been horrible for the commissioners and for the staff. My son, who's an adult, his Mother's Day card to me was, "I hope your year as a commissioner gets better." You know, I'm 5 months in, and it's been an unbelievable week with the messages, the emails, the text, and then the Facebook slamming. So, really, honestly, truly, email me. Ask Chris. I'm very nice on email. I will not yell at you. I will not. I'm open. I'm learning. I want to hear what the problems and the issues are. Maybe I'm naive enough to think I can still make a difference, but I do want to hear about it, and I would rather hear it from you personally than on Facebook. So that's my comment. And
I've heard from some folks too that this is a petty issue. I've learned, again learning, you're correct, there are no such thing as petty issues anymore. Everything goes from 0 to 100 in the snap of a finger. That's this forum. That's what we need to be able to do. That's what we continue to talk about. That's why we're going to start this road show. Scares these guys to death. I'm not going to tell you that's not true. We're going to be out. You want to sit down and talk in a less formal atmosphere where we can actually have a conversation? That'd be nice, where we can actually hear from you. Public meetings, no matter what, and it's great to see everybody here. Thank you. You're limited to a time to talk. There's no interaction back and forth. We are more than willing to have some of that discussion. But you need to know, we have to make decisions every day. I already know we're going to have some other discussion tonight about why do you enforce it, why do you enforce that, what's the purpose here, what's the purpose there, who's getting favoritism. I will tell you the one thing that is not going on. It's not about who you are. There's nothing about who you are. You can argue with us that we don't enforce something and you don't like the fact that we don't enforce it. You don't like how we enforce it. But I will tell you what I will not say, or what I will not tolerate, is that we do it based on who. They're there. You want to hold us accountable to those, do that. Thank you. Sorry.
You're done.
No.
All right. Okay, any other discussion? We'll look into this further then. So with that, no, not yet. This is still our discussion at this point. Citizen comments coming up yet, so let's take care of our appropriations if we could, please. Anybody so inclined? Okay, we have a motion, and we have support. Any comments or questions? Anybody have anything on the list of bills? No questions? Okay, hearing none. Those in favor? Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. Commissioner comments. Roxanne?
To reiterate, I guess just that it's good to see you here. Usually it's staff and us and the newspaper, so, I mean, we're always here and want people to, like Audra said, contact us. I mean, we're certainly willing and able to listen to your concerns and take it into consideration, so, thank you.
Larry?
I just tell Dave we'll try to get you a new cap.
There's no promises there.
With your new title.
Yeah, there we go. Just mentioned, Gratiot County Players has 3 more performances of Mary Poppins. I would suggest getting tickets soon. The Friday and Saturday performances this past weekend were both sold out, and Sunday had probably 25 empty seats. So if you're thinking of seeing it, it's worth seeing. It's definitely worth seeing.
Very good reviews. I haven't seen it yet, but I got tickets for Sunday, so. Audra?
Well, a feel-good city moment this morning. If you missed it on Facebook, Bob Albrecht from the city rescued 12 baby ducks out of a sewer storm drain, storm drain, and happened to be right by former city clerk Barb Gager's home. So she took pictures and posted them and sent